Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap and I'm shooting this on the new DJI Osmo Pocket, a super tiny little compact video camera with 3-axis gimbal stabilization. It'll cost you about £329 or $350. Now it's sort of going up against the new GoPro Hero 7 Black, but while this is really waterproof and rugged, the Osmo not quite so much. But if you want a really compact, a really small video camera that can shoot up to 4K 60, and you can also put it in your pocket, then the Osmo Pocket, makes sense I guess, could actually be a really good option.
So here's a quick look at the video quality shot on the Osmo Pocket. This is 4K 30, obviously we're in good light here on the south bank of London. It's a beautiful crisp winter's day, and I have to say I'm really impressed by the quality of the video. And even shooting at 4K 60, everything stays super smooth thanks to that 3-axis gimbal stabilization. It's also like 4 degrees today, so Mr. Bagpiper Man here must be pretty chilly. Even in trickier lighting conditions, the Osmo Pocket still produces some beautiful video. Colors are natural, it's super smooth even as I'm walking and navigating my way around these crowds. And I'm also just really impressed by the dynamic range, how it handles that bright backlight from that winter sun in the sky to the darker shadows around these market stalls. But heading into the pub, we get a proper low light test, and you can see there's a lot more noise in the corners, especially the top left and top right, but it still looks pretty good, and importantly, it's still smooth. Sticking with slightly lower light conditions, I'm in my studio games room thing with, well, reasonably good lighting, but you can see it is a little bit noisy still. I was considering using the Osmo Pocket to get B-roll of products, maybe like this mouse, for example, for my YouTube videos, and the quality is okay, but unless you have studio or outdoor lighting, it can still be quite noisy, just like the GoPro. Another issue I've run into is the autofocus, which as you can see here, isn't the fastest, and sometimes it just refuses to focus on what I want it to focus on. You can tap the screen to change the focus point, which did fix this, but even then, as I take the watch away, it does take a second or two to then focus back on the keyboard.
Alright, so this is a quick test between the Hero 7 Black and the Osmo Pocket, and I'm sure the first thing you'll notice is how much more you get in the frame on the Hero. Obviously you do get that wider field of view, but you also get that fisheye look with the GoPro, which kind of inherently makes your video look a bit amateurish, I suppose. Compared to the Osmo Pocket, which while has a narrower field of view, it's probably better if you are going to be using this for more higher quality video production. They both have internal mics, so I'm going to switch between the two devices. You'll see a little speaker icon pop up, which should show you where the audio is coming from, and you tell me which sounds best in the comments below. But obviously one of the big selling points of these cameras is the stabilization. The Hero 7 Black has the new Hyper Smooth tech, whereas the DJI Osmo just uses, well, 3-axis gimbal stabilization. But you tell me, as I'm walking along the south bank here, which one is smoother. The lighting's also quite tricky because I get some very bright sunlight on my face, but also some dark shadows. So the dynamic range, the contrast will be quite interesting to see as well. In terms of actually using them, it is quite handy having that little 1-inch front screen on the Osmo Pocket so I can see what's in the frame, although that does bring me onto the fact that since they both shoot 16:9 and yet the 1-inch screen on the Osmo Pocket is a square, you're not actually getting the full video preview that you would on the back of the GoPro. So the GoPro does have a bigger and better screen, but the fact that you get this front-facing screen on the Osmo actually is quite useful, especially if you're doing vlogs like this.
Another question I had was how the video shot on the Osmo Pocket compared to video on a normal smartphone. So one of these is from the Osmo Pocket, another is from the Huawei Mate 20 Pro, both shooting at 4K 30. And before I tell you which one is which, have a look at both and see which you think is better in terms of video quality and also stabilization. And so actually on the left we have the Osmo Pocket, on the right the Mate 20 Pro. So what do you think? Is there a big difference? Let me know in the comments.
Alright, so next up let's test the difference in quality between resolutions. This is 1080p at 30 FPS. I'll leave it to run for a minute so you can get an idea of the quality on this very bright but also very cold winter's day. This is now shooting at 4K 30. Again, I'll leave it for a second so you can get an idea of the quality. And finally, we have 4K 60. And I'm sure the first thing you'll notice is how much smoother everything looks. That's obviously the higher frame rate. But in terms of quality, well, same as 4K, I guess, same resolution. For me, most of the time though, I'm just gonna leave it in 4K 30, so you don't get that super smooth soap opera-like effect. But if you're going to be wanting to slow it down afterwards in the edit, you can obviously shoot at 4K 60, then put it in Final Cut or Premiere Pro, halve the speed, and then you get a bit of a slow motion. Or of course you could put it in the actual dedicated slow motion mode, so you get 1080p at 120 FPS.
So this is the Osmo Pocket, and in the box with it you get this really nifty little case or little holster thing, which as you can see doesn't really add a whole lot to the overall size of it, but it keeps it safe, and it means when you are putting it in your jacket or your trouser pocket, well, it just keeps it a little bit protected. So on the side we have the micro SD card slot, on the bottom the USB-C port for charging, and then finally we have this extra little connector hidden under here. Now in the box, when you first set this up, you'll get these little adapters for either USB-C if you've got an Android phone, or the Lightning port if you're using an iPhone. So you can set this up with either an iPhone or Android. And it's a bit of a weird setup process because you then just slide that in there, which just doesn't feel right at all, and then plug that into your phone. You then download the DJI Mimo app, turn on the device, and you can see already we've got new firmware to download, which I'll do after this setup. And that is how you connect the Osmo to your phone. And then from there, which as you can see I've already done, you can then actually control everything through your phone. It's a bit of a weird setup this, and it does feel a little bit precarious just poking out of the USB-C port there. And so using your phone with the Osmo means you can get a much bigger viewfinder, and you can see I'm adjusting the angle and the orientation of the camera, and I can access all the camera settings that I would otherwise do on the actual camera through the app, which is obviously a lot easier given the much bigger screen. And then once you're done with that, just slide this back out, make sure you don't lose this adapter, which I think is going to be very easy to lose, and then put this little bit of plastic back in like so. There's only two physical buttons. We have the power button. It takes about 3 or 4 seconds to boot up, not too long at all. And then of course the record button, which will either record video or if you're in the photo mode, take a picture. So like the GoPro, pretty much everything is accessed through the screen, which can be a bit fiddly given how small it is. If you swipe in from the right hand side, we have all the different camera options: photo, video, slow-mo, panorama, and time-lapse. I'm gonna leave it in video for now, and if you then swipe in again, you can see it's a little bit touchy there. You can swipe in again, we get the different frame rate and resolution options. So 1080p at either 30 or 60, or 4K at 30 or 60. Generally, I leave it on 4K 30. Swiping down from the top gives us the full settings menu where you can see the battery life, you can recalibrate it if the gyro is going a bit crazy, change tilt control, auto power off timings. One of the most useful options is this auto flicker setting. You can switch between 50 and 60 Hertz. So wherever you are in the world, whatever frequency the lights or the screens around you are at, you can then change it so you don't get any flickering. Swiping up from the bottom gives you the option to recenter the camera. You can flip it round for your selfie vlogging mode. If you're going to be tracking or following something that's moving quickly, you can change that to either slow or fast follow. We've also got 3 different camera modes. We've got first person view, FPV like that, which just follows what you're doing like it's, I don't know, first person. You have follow, so you can then set a target and it will follow that. Or thirdly, tilt locked, so you can see the camera tries to stay in the same place regardless of how I'm holding the camera. And then finally from the left, you can swipe in and you'll see your previous footage and photos. I do find it quite intuitive to use though. Like I want to flip it around, make sure it's shooting in 4K, like say that, all good to go, and then press record. That's it. So that is really nice and simple to use. As for battery life, you'll get a little under 2.5 hours shooting full HD on the Osmo Pocket. If you're shooting at 4K, this is going to be closer to about an hour and a half, which actually is still pretty good, and you'll probably fill up your microSD card long before that anyway. And since it does use a USB-C port, if you have a relatively recent Android phone, you'll be able to use the same phone charger.
Now lots of people will consider buying this as a bit of an action camera, but you're not really going to want to mount this to your helmet or to a chest strap and go surfing with it or mountain biking, because it's just not that kind of rugged equipment like the GoPro is. So for me, I'm actually going to be using this as a bit of a B camera, like a behind the scenes camera, a secondary thing to my Panasonic GH5, which is my main shooting camera. and if that goes wrong, or if I want someone to sort of record what I'm doing behind the scenes, this would be a good option. And because it is so small, it's also quite stealthy. If you're recording out and about and someone sees a big tripod and a camera, they rush over and ask for permits or tell you to bugger off or something. With this, you can be really subtle with it.
And so that is the new DJI Osmo Pocket, and for £330, it's definitely not cheap, and the GoPro Hero 7 does obviously offer some strong competition, but there's not a lot else out there that offers such high quality video in such a compact and literally pocketable size. There are actually quite a few accessories for the Osmo Pocket, but coming early in 2019, there should be a headphone plug adapter that will allow you to connect an external microphone, and that will make it a much better setup. But I have to say, overall, I really like this little thing and I'd highly recommend it. And a big thanks to heliguide.com for sending out a review sample which made this video possible. Check out their website in the description where you can buy the Osmo Pocket, a bunch of the accessories, and they sell loads of other high quality drones and camera equipment for consumers like you and me, and for professional, proper filmmakers. So check out heliguide.com. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know what you make of the Osmo Pocket in the comments below. Are you tempted by it? Do you think it's too much money? And would you go for this or the GoPro? Do let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.